in this edition of palm colored privilege on steroids. I should say, I was about to say on overload, but you could say that too, but on steroids. I think someone sent me this story, and I'm not sure if they did or if they didn't, but I came across it again and said, really? Oh, really now? So this person's name is Thomasevich. I'm guessing that's how you pronounce his name, of Oakland. Just received no prison time for playing quote unquote hide and seek games with children on the bus. Now, this guy was a bus driver and he was playing quote unquote hide and seek games, but let's be real here. Those were not hide and seek games. That's what he told the kids in order for them to play the game with him. But this guy was actually touching inappropriately and molesting multiple children. But he received absolutely no prison time for what he did. Now, what I'm thinking is that he was in prison or in some kind of a jail or somewhere waiting for a trial or to be sentenced or something along those lines. I'm just predicting that before I actually get into the article. And then somewhere along the way, they took leniency with him and decided to give him no jail time. The world we live in, y'all, like I said, this is the us versus them. They can literally get away with anything. Meanwhile, Bill Cosby is in jail on hearsay. This guy actually has admitted to molesting children and gets no jail time. I would ask where Me Too is at, but let's be real here. They're out spending those salary checks that they got exposed for getting a couple weeks ago. Let's get into it. A Kenneland bus driver who molested 2 young children during games of hide and seek aboard his school bus was given lifetime parole supervision instead of prison during a virtual hearing on Thursday. You hear that? Lifetime parole. Lifetime parole. Thomasevich, age 70 of Oakland, pleaded guilty over the summer to 2 counts of endangering the welfare of a child and 4 counts of child abuse and neglect stemming from the months-long abuse. He admitted to touching 2 young students inappropriately over their clothes and allowing 4 students to ride the bus without their seatbelts between October 2019 and January 2020. Prosecutors previously said Thomasevich touched the children on the bus after he parked outside a Kenneland school and allowed the children to play quote-unquote hide and seek with their seatbelts off. Judge Stephen Taylor imposed then suspended a 3-year prison term for Thomasevich, which prosecutors were seeking, and instead sentenced him to parole supervision for a minimum of 15 years. The privilege, y'all. He gets 15 years supervised parole instead of 3 years in prison, which I believe is a slap on the wrist as well. Meanwhile, like I said, Bill Cosby is in jail for 10 for hearsay. He also ordered Thomasevich to register as a sex offender under Megan's law and undergo sex offender specific treatment. Clearly, Thomasevich took advantage of his position. Kids on that bus trusted him. The parents of the children trusted him. Once they got picked up on that bus, they are in the custody of the bus driver until they enter the school grounds. So it was a position of trust that was very wrongly and heinously violated by Mr. Thomasevich by actions here, Taylor said. I can only take what that judge said and barely with only a grain of salt, because you say that statement, but then you gave him this ridiculous sentence of 15 years of lifetime parole, even though he admitted to doing what he did and is proof of what he did. And see, this is the thing, that guilty plea, that was nothing but a plea deal. So they probably knew early on what they were going to give this guy. They probably had no intention of giving him any type of jail time whatsoever. The mother of one of the victims tearfully read aloud a letter her child wrote to the court describing how the incident impacted her. I'm having flashbacks of stuff that he did and that scared me and made me very uncomfortable. I'm a little scared I might see him again. I'm feeling safe and comfortable again about riding the bus, but sometimes I get scared when I get flashbacks of Tom, the mother said, reading from the letter. They don't take that into consideration that they could run into this guy at any moment. They didn't say he was under house arrest for 15 years or that he couldn't be around kids. They could easily see this guy and they'll remember him. And look, and then I bet you they're gonna try to play on the whole his age as well. He's 70. So the victim has been receiving treatment, but the family said it's still unclear how lasting the impact of the incident will have on their child. It's very hard to know the extent of what this has caused her. She wants to move on. She's not talking about this with us, but we're trying to get the help she needs in order to heal and move forward, the victim's mother said. In arguing for prison time, Assistant Prosecutor Rima Career said Thomasevich bribed the kids with toys, candy, and donuts to stay quiet about the abuse, though Thomasevich did not admit to those accusations in his guilty plea. In statement to police, Career said Thomasevich blamed the children, saying you can't really trust kids, and they would beg me to play with them. I know Thomasevich's lawyer sits here today, and he says he's remorseful, but the statements Thomasevich has made to law enforcement throughout this investigation and throughout this case paints a much different picture. It paints a picture that he really hasn't accepted what he did was wrong, and he's blaming the victims for this entire incident, Career said. Thomasevich's attorney, John Bruno, said his client has no criminal history. I hate when stuff like that happens. When you have things like this happen and they bring up, oh, this person didn't have a criminal history. So what? Now they do. He also said Thomasevich would face excessive hardship if he was incarcerated again, that he already suffered during the 4 months he spent in county jail after his arrest. Are you kidding me? So this guy couldn't last 4 months in jail, but Bill Cosby, they're expecting him to last 10 years. Apparently, he's what I'm seeing is he's actually faring pretty well, but we still want that appeal, though. Of course, he wasn't going to fare well. I bet the people on the inside found out about what he did and probably been torturing him. He couldn't last 4 months. 4 months. Thomasevich was released from jail earlier this year on home detention ahead of his sentencing. Those 4 months in the Morris County jail broke him. I'm sure that you molesting and touching these children inappropriately broke them. I mean, you heard a piece of the letter that the mother of one of the victims said. The child is broken, and it's early on. This is going to carry on with them for the rest of their life. Imagine they're going to have to carry that into relationships with them. It practically destroyed him, Bruno said. I've never seen a grown man cry so much, not only for the remorse he feels, but because of his inability to hold and to touch and to be with his grandchildren. They need to check on them grandkids because he might have inappropriately touched them. I don't put it past them. Anybody who will put their hands on someone else's kids will probably put them on their own flesh and blood. I'm just saying. The punishment is done, and if it will continue to be done if the victims have any concerns that he is getting off easy. He is not. He is getting off easy. He is. See, these attorneys that be defending crap like this be making me want to choke them with their own necktie. This attorney is actually arguing that this guy is not getting off easy. Let's see. He molested children. He admitted it. He was supposed to get 3 years in jail. He only did 4 months because apparently it was too much for him to handle. He was crying. It broke him. It destroyed him. He gets out, does home detention. He pleads guilty to this, and now all he has is a 15-year lifetime parole, and he has to register as a sex offender. I don't even see anything in here about him having to wear an ankle monitor if he even has to wear one, which means he can just freely go back into society. He just can't be around kids, at least kids that are not related to him. If y'all remember, there was a story I did last month about a guy who had found out that his grandfather years ago when he was a kid had molested or raped some children or some kid or something like that, and he had found out about it, and then when he got older he went back and found his grandfather and ended up killing him. He better hope that his grandkids don't do the same to him. A sex offender risk assessment completed in the Adult Diagnostic and Treatment Center in Avenel found that Thomasevich has a very low risk to reoffend, Bruno said. It also showed Thomasevich's behavior was repetitive conduct. Thomasevich briefly addressed the court. I promise you will never see me here again because it will never happen again, he said. Thomasevich was employed by a company outside of the school district called First Student. As a part of his parole supervision, Thomasevich is also barred from contacting the victims or their families and cannot hold any job that puts him in contact with children. Yeah, he may not be able to get a job that's involving him around children, but that doesn't mean he won't be around children that are not the victims. And as far as we know, there's only 2 of them. That's very minor. So he could be around any other kids, and he did this multiple times. This wasn't a one-time thing. One time is bad enough, but this guy went back and kept doing it. But like I said, this is the us versus them society that we live in. If a black man has to go to jail for something like this, and rightfully so, he should be in jail. He only did 4 freaking months because it broke him. Because he cried. Okay. What about the victims? He broke them. I'm sure they cried, and so did their parents. All I'm going to say is this. He better be careful, because he may come across that one parent that's vengeful. Or he may come across another person who's a parent who he did not affect when he did this. And now that his face is out there, they may want to go after him on behalf of the ones that he did affect. Y'all let me know what y'all think about this down in the comments. Like, share, subscribe, and I'll talk to you in the next one.